That one. They still.
Good evening. I'll call to order the Downers Grove Park District regular board meeting for Thursday, February 15th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bender,
Here.
Mr. Dahlstrom,
Here.
Mr. Katula,
Here.
Mr. Lunt,
Here.
Ms. McDonald.
Here. And as our custom, I ask you to stand and join us for the allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any changes to the agenda, Bill?
We do not.
Yep, move ahead to communication. Visitors.
We have a exciting and sad presentation today for Mike Stelter, who has been with us for 37 years. His last day is March 1st. Had he hung on until June, it would have been 38 years. Came really close to the 38th. So Mike, come on up. Kevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Kevin's got
say,
a few words.
yeah,
for you.
just wanted to say a few words for Mike. I had to write it down because there's dates involved and all that, so. So Mike has been with the district since June 2nd, 1986, 37 years, like Bill had mentioned. He just missed 38 years. That's a long time. I was 10 years old when Mike started. He started out as a park forester and was a crucial part in building that program. In addition, the natural area program as well. And Mike has been, again, a crucial part to a lot of those two programs. And in addition, he's done a lot with the community and a lot of the volunteer program and all that good stuff. Some of the roles that Mike held was, he held a few different roles through his time here. The assistant superintendent, he took in 2015. And then in 2019, he took on the role of superintendent of natural resources. And then he's currently the superintendent of parks. Mike has held many roles, made a significant positive impact on his employees in the district. I don't think, this Mike has made he's made a huge impact on I guess just the overall community. His dedication is I guess it's I don't think many people can match his dedication. I mean, and he's out there 7 days a week driving around looking at things. It's I don't know that we'll find someone to fill Mike's boots, I guess. So so we wish you a happy retirement, Mike. And we know you're not going to stay away long. But on behalf of the district, we'd like to recognize you. If you wanna grab it. Okay,
Sure. Got to come up. I could just say Arbor Day is not going to be the same without.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll be back for that. Yeah, that's that.
Where's he at? Oh, he's over there.
Watch your step.
Here, let's go.
So we had to make sure you took a piece of the district with you.
I know. Just for you.
Here, you hold on to this.
With the picture, with the picture.
Can I just say a couple of words?
Absolutely.
Yeah, about that. It's kind of like the cliche. Love your job. I love people down the and all people in it. So. I would work with a better crew. I mean, I would more serve this Wisconsin, Cook County, but everybody I'm working with here has been great. I've really enjoyed my time here. It's not a decision made lightly, but just that time. So I appreciate everything, the board, all the support we've had from you guys. That helps a lot too. And all the directors, things I can do. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
What are you gonna do to stay sharp?
Watch granddaughter. Parents. Work with the guy that has the grazing service, chasing goats around, that kind of thing, so. Looking forward.
All right, well, I hope you continue your environmental impact.
I hope.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other visitors? Right now,
There's no online visitors.
move ahead to written correspondence.
Do not have.
Next item is the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have 5 items for your consideration this evening. Approval of minutes, January 18th, 2024, regular meeting minutes. Treasurer's report, payment of bills in the amount of $1,206,000 and $869, man, I have butchered that, and 84 cents. Investments, payout number 17, FH Passion, SN Nielsen and Associates LLC, the Collin Park Spray Ground and tennis improvements.
Questions for Bill or anybody?
This is our last payment to FH Passion until we release the 5%.
No, so this was the retainage that we held back for some of the subs. These are the subs that have completed all their work and have no outstanding. So we still have retainage until they turn it back on in the spring and everything is finally completed.
But is this the last payment before the retainage or is this?
This is part of the retainage. This is just the retainage held for the subs that have completed all their work. So we kind of segregated what's not completely done or needs to be confirmed versus that we know is done. That way they can close out those subs.
Okay.
One more.
If I'm using the wrong term, we do only have one more payment.
Correct.
Should be one more.
One more.
There are a couple of subcontractors that we have a little bit of their retainage that if they finish some things in the next month or so, we might have a payment to them. But retainage specifically to FH Passion, we're holding on to that until we start it up in spring. So there could be another small payout before the final.
Just look forward to a day when we don't. do this. John,
Us too.
It's only been 17 times.
it's only been, I know. It's large numbers.
No more questions?
Second?
Roll call please.
Mr. Lund,
Aye.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Petula.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye.
Moving on to action items. First item is approval to purchase John Deere 580 rough mowers.
Thank you. We're looking for the purchase of those rough mowers for the golf course and Dave can answer any questions you might have. The only thing I would like to point out, in the recommendation, we have a trade-in value of $42,000. Prior to the trade-in value, the cost of those mowers are $72,077.48. That's the numbers thing. So the actual cost to us after the trade-in is gonna be $30,000, $30,077.48. So that's what it's actually costing the district after the trade-ins. So we'd be looking for approval.
I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with Rebels Turf and Tractor to accept a trade in value of $42,000. The 2 John Deere 1570 rough mowers and to purchase 2 John Deere 1580 4-wheel drive rough mowers at the full cost of $72,077.48.
Second.
Want to amend that motion to
Something.
excluding the plus trade-in $42,000
Yeah, the total contract value is 30,077.48.
772,000.
That's what's down here.
Yes, it's not. This whole process has been a little.
Okay. You already do a motion? Just say the what number now?
$30,077.48.
Okay, well, I guess it's easy enough math, 42, the flat number. All right, let's go through this again. I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with Rebels Turf and Tractor to accept a trade-in value of $42,000 for the two John Deere 1570 rough mowers and to purchase two John Deere 1580 four-wheel drive rough mowers at the cost of $30,077.48.
Second.
Any other? I'll call roll.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katrula.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye.
I'm like Ron Burgundy, I'm gonna read what's ever on the teleprompter.
It's gonna make it happen. Seems like mowing season gonna start early.
Next item?
The authorization for replacement of Belmont Golf Club clubhouse doors through the GSA General Service Administration Cooperative.
We have a memo before you. This is replacing the existing doors that, let's just say they've seen better days. They were actually more of a residential grade. What we are recommending to purchase is more of a commercial grade doors, so we get a little bit of life out of those, and Kevin doesn't have to fix them all the time.
Yeah, right.
But if you have any questions on the recommendation, Kevin would be happy to answer that. He's like the door guy.
No question.
Motion.
I'll move to authorize the executive director to award a contract to American Building Services for the Belmont Golf Club Clubhouse Door Replacement Project through the General Service Administration Cooperative not to exceed $65,458.26.
Second.
For discussion, we have the roll.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katrula.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye.
The next is item we had discussed during the budget process. This is to replace the HVAC system at the Warrenville offices. And the memo is in here. Again, something Kevin can answer. I believe Paul worked with him as well.
We talked about this at length at the budget meeting last year, whether we use the building going forward or not. All arguments about to make sense to replace this system.
It's gonna die.
Great. I'll move to authorize the executive director to award a contract to Midwest Mechanical Group, Inc. for the administrative building HVAC replacements through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance for an amount not to exceed $332,864 and authorize a payment to Midwest Mechanical in the amount of $83,216.
Seconded.
Second. Any other discussion? There isn't.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katrula.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye.
Moving on. Authorization to those in bids.
Yeah, where staff is seeking authorization to bid out both Lloyd and Northside Parks. Those are both in this year's capital budget for replacement. Paul has outlined here the schedule once we go out to bid, as well as the process that he's gone through with talking to the neighbors. I did send that to you under separate cover, some of those results. And Paul and his staff are working on final designs, and when we send out to recommend to you the actual contract purchase, we'll have those designs.
Do we think the survey respondents were the number of responses were light due to the fact that it was issued via USPS?
I don't know what you guys thought. I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was good.
We
Yeah.
usually don't get a lot.
The one was only,
In the past, before we started using these surveys, we would, put out notices and we would hold a meeting, a neighborhood meeting. And we'd get 3 to 5 people would come to the meeting, and we found that we get a much better response rate by sending this survey out to the neighbors.
There's only 29 respondents. I thought that was low.
We had 26 responded for North Side and 18
18
from Loy.
Okay.
Yeah, now Loy it only went to 56 addresses there. Whereas at North Side, those are much smaller parcels and the houses are much closer together. So there were many more that buffer around the park that we send to. So we had a lot more of them sent to North Side, but yeah, I think Loy was like a 32% return rate. And North Side 20%. We feel like it's good.
Have we passed on these before? Have we passed on renovating these two parks before? I don't remember I don't remember.
So
They're coming up on
a
18.
number of years ago, we did recommend replacing North Side. And we had done a park tour and the board at that time made the decision not to replace that. It was already kind of at the end of its life and it's very much at its life. Also doesn't have any ADA access to it, that's basically kind of in an island and those neighbors back up to it, so. That's why we highly recommend, particularly it's definitely at the end of its life. Staff's not able to replace things when they break, and that neighborhood we're starting to notice it turning over. Where houses that had raised their kids and have now been living there are now selling and new families are coming in, so we just think it's gonna get a lot more.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, the same thing did happen to Loy. We did a park tour there and we passed on that one too, probably 5 years ago before
It was a while ago, yeah.
pandemic.
Sam, you might have been on.
I noticed from the survey, on the North Side Park in particular, there was comments about the ADA accessibility, and I understand the complications when those parks are way off the sidewalk. That becomes a very long paved path for us to do. And I know that we have a list of the upcoming ADA projects, and I wish I knew off the top of my head, but I know that you guys are well focused on it. Is that something that's going to be part of
Yes,
this?
that's part of the project.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, but right now you're on the sidewalk, you literally it almost looks like you're walking through somebody's lawn to get to it, right? So, yeah, no, that definitely needs to be worked on either.
Yeah, so it'll be a path all the way to it, but the park is kind of far in, like Pine Brook.
It's actually our last playground that is not accessible by some kind of walkway, hard surface walkway. And so it's one that we've had on the list for a while. We kind of were intending to do the walkway along with the playground renovation. So we've been kind of waiting till the point where we can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So it is budgeted in the ADA budget. Actually, we have funds for that, just for the walkway, right?
For that walkway.
Yep. But we're gonna put it in the bid with the playground renovation, so it'll be done at the same time.
And then, on the survey in Lloyd Park, the question seems to surround the fence not being good enough to keep kids from running around. It seems like a hard thing to change, because we want the parks to be open and accessible. But, also, yeah, it is a slightly busier street.
I don't think we planned on doing.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. And we just got these comments back, so we haven't really
We haven't talked.
gotten too much into it, but we'll have to look at it. It's our typical just wood round rail fence, which just has the 2 vertical.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see if there's something we can do to,
Some plantings or something.
yeah, to try to.
But we'll take a look at that. We really haven't had a chance to talk
Or
to
the train station there. Yeah, but that was just, and a lot of slides. I feel. A lot of top things to want to see at slides.
Yeah.
I do miss the old metal slides. We're really high up, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
The fishing resort I go to still has one of those. I always send Paul a picture. I go, we need one of these just to make him crazy.
Get tetanus somewhere.
Heat and speed.
Someone like to make a motion and put some bids.
Oh, I'll move to grant authorization to bid the Loy and North Side Park Playground renovations.
Seconded.
Second.
Other questions? Okay.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Lunt,
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katsula.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye.
On to the Comcast home service.
Again, this is a subject we talked a little bit about last month. There were some questions that Chris did address within his new memo. We recommend going with Crown Castle for the reasons outlined. Comcast, I'm sorry, I'm reading Comcast. Recommend going for them. I do want to congratulate Chris for getting a cheaper price than we had before. You know, he's done a lot of work. Chris, be happy to answer any questions.
Questions,
No questions.
motion?
100%. Press wire to wire.
Just, all right, I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into a 36-month agreement with Comcast for PRI phone services for a total of 36-month contract value not to exceed $31,219, not including interstate taxes and fees or other additions.
Second. Oh, sorry. Saber.
Mix it up, I'll second it.
Other discussion with?
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye. Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katsula.
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
Authorization on bids for fitness cardio equipment.
Yeah, we're requesting to go to bid for our annual refresh of equipment in the fitness center. This is something that we budget each year to be cycling, no pun intended, cycling equipment in and out. So we would request that we're able to go to bid for those replacements.
This is the first time we're gonna have a climber machine, or we have one of those?
So we have a couple in the corner, yeah.
This is the one with more stairs.
Yeah,
That gets it up.
it does.
They're great.
And I also thought the incoming bikes.
We come with it.
Thought 5 might be a little many, but the last 2 times I've gone in there, I've seen 4 of them at least, and that was kind of not a very busy time either.
Yeah, well, both the bikes and the climber, those are really heavily used, so.
I think they were all used this afternoon. I was up there before the meeting. It was actually very crowded in there today.
Okay, someone care to make a motion on?
I'll move to grant authorization to bid the replacement of 6 pieces of fitness cardio equipment due to the expiration of the lease.
I'll second the motion.
No other questions? We have a roll call, please, Sadie.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye. Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katsula.
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
Memorandum of understanding with the Lyle Partnership.
Late last year, we talked a little bit that Lyle had approached me that they were thinking of closing down their fitness center. Simply because it's losing money and it's smaller. They're looking for some opportunities to replace that for their residents. So we went back and talked with them and took a little bit more of a global approach with the swimming pool, because we're just the opposite with them with the swimming pool. And wanted to make sure that it's working on both sides. So that's why we're recommending just doing a memorandum of understanding during a period of time so we can evaluate to make sure it's working for both communities. But we recommend getting into this cooperative with them, creating opportunity for our residents to have a swimming pool and aquatics, giving their residents opportunity for the fitness center. They're also looking at creating some other avenues for their residents, so we would not necessarily be the only fitness center for this. And just given on locations, we don't anticipate it to be so many people, it's gonna have negative impacts on the fitness center. But again, that's why I wanted to do a memorandum of understanding. So we could evaluate that and make changes if either side was having some difficulties. And Dave's worked on this and I'm sure he can answer any questions.
As Bill mentioned, that the other two locations that they're trying to work on. And I believe they have agreements with, it's the Edward Elmhurst Fitness Center on Route 53. And then it's called Central Park Athletic Club. It's in the building on the corner of Naperville Road and Warrenville Road. There's a large fitness center in the basement of that building, and they've indicated that both those agencies are willing to work with them. So with ours, that we give them 3 choices.
Or are we gonna track enrollment at fitness center and participation at Lions Sea Park and Sea Lion Park and the other?
Well, so obviously here they'll have to buy a membership, so we'll have to scan in every time, so we can run reports for that. And then the same thing on their end, our residents will go to their pool and they'll buy a membership, whatever kind of cards they use, so they'll be able to track visits as well.
Purely off zip code or address?
I know, you'll scan in.
It's addressed.
It's address.
Tied to your-
Is there any way we can put like a flag, almost like a campaign flag or something in rec track? Where we say, we identify a Lyle Park district, a Lyle resident.
We can search it that way. Before we even started this conversation, we wanted to see how many we already have. I don't remember the numbers off my head, but Sally was able to pull that up pretty quickly.
So we can track year over year.
Yeah.
Yes,
Growth.
absolutely.
Right now, there's 100 and
The pools, we do ask every year to kind of track to see how many of our residents are taking advantage of those.
right now there's 123 Lyle residents. Of that 123, 88 are insurance members. So, Silver Sneakers, Renew Active. So most of them are in that category.
And they don't have very many members now to begin with.
I asked him what a busy time for them was, and he literally told me 10 people.
Right, but I think where I get concerned is the 10 people, because that gym is not as good as our gym. And once there's access to a better gym, more people are gonna sign up. Hey, it's already hard enough to get equipment here. The fact that they have low numbers, I mean, the fact that they're closing the gym is probably because it's not as nice
No, it's not.
as this thing, right? So it'll be,
And again, that's why we took the approach of the memorandum of understanding and the conversations we've had with them is. If we're getting where we can't service our residents. Our residents need to come first, we need to adjust that and we reserve the right to adjust that, so they may see a price increase. If this isn't working, so we're just gonna have, our recommendation is just to track it. For us, and on the other side is we really wanted to cooperate with them with this if we could. Because the pool has a lot of value to us, and we do have residents that use that pool, and that's been one of our answers to aquatics is. We put in a spray ground, but then we also have these agreements with the other communities.
Do you know what the numbers are of our Downers Grove residents?
Not offhand, we did talk about that,
It was several hundred.
and they do lessons, they had quite a 250, 300 lessons.
That sounds right.
And what about, where are we for membership compared to pre-pandemic? In the fitness center?
But we're around 85% right now. So I don't know if we're ever gonna get back up to that 100% level, but I would think, 90 is definitely within reach, 90% was within reach. So we continue to increase each month. Right now, of course, it's popular. But I feel confident that we'll be able to maintain that number.
So we have 10 to 15% of numbers that we haven't regained since pandemic, that Lyle would be not necessarily pushing us over an edge where we weren't before.
If they had a large turnout. I told Bill, I think my thought is that we're going to benefit more for our residents with the pool usage than Lyle probably will because of where our location is.
I think there's also an assumption that folks that work out that aren't using Lyle's, they're going somewhere else already. So they're.
Right.
they're already there and hopefully they stay there.
Right,
But we would have to watch
for the
that.
people who like Park District.
Correct.
That way.
And we have been having some staff level discussions about ways that we can kind of phase in creating more space in there. That fitness desk that's in there that takes up quite a bit of square footage. We're looking at seeing if we can just pull that out of there. We also have an old office over by the stretching area that isn't being used, and we're looking at seeing if there's a way we can open that up. Not add any equipment, not put anything else in, just create a little more breathing space. And like I said, I worked out there today, and I think we just need a little more breathing space because it can be tight and you can be close to people, and it almost feels like there's more people in there because it is kind of crowded. So we're gonna look at some intern things that we can do with that as well.
And I noticed the memo explains how much Dollars Grove residents would save on a pool pass, but you know how much a season pool pass is for Lyle?
I think it's an attachment.
Is that a round number? And I didn't.
Yes, then
Second.
Yeah, so an individual is 142, Brett, and then a 4-person family is 243.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay.
The memo has been legally approved.
Yeah, Dirk is looking.
anything else?
I hold the same reservations that Commissioner Under had stated. I'm worried about the influx and about time already waiting on equipment. I understand where the staff is going with this and I appreciate it. I'm just concerned again, I mean, it's a premium now with the popularity we have upstairs and it seems to be taking off. The numbers indicate that. But I have my reservations when it comes to, we could be a victim of our own success too.
And again, that's why we felt we would take this approach to give us the ability to basically back out of it. And we were pretty clear, we were very clear with that. With the situation.
So I would be interested, yeah, at the end of the year, hearing from the families who are using the pool or knowing those numbers, right? I use the gym, I don't use the pool. So.
Right. Yeah, we can get the numbers and ask them to pull us the mailing list. We could actually survey our residents and ask them what the experience was like.
Yeah.
Unlike surveys.
So much.
Enjoying.
That's actually a good idea. I don't think we've ever really asked that. It'd be interesting to ask that.
So what do you think? Are you guys proposing that we'll see how many new registrations we have from Lyle Park District residents? And then track the number of visits.
Yep.
For the first 60 to 90 days.
I think we'll at least probably until next year, see where that balances out, and we can report that back to the board too.
I was thinking in terms of capacity and equipment availability, because I know it's December months, people are.
We're on the cusp of that
Yeah.
starting to,
Yes.
we're at the peak right now, so.
Absolutely.
By the time this all filters through, we'll have missed that peak, so I think we'd want to watch that, and particularly next fall.
Yes.
That October, November, December period where we see our jumps. I think we got to kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that's not jumping too high.
Yep, okay.
I would think they're gonna want to do a similar analysis because.
200 to 300 more people at a pool.
Correct.
I find one night.
And that's how we approached this was, as David's mentioned. We kind of looked at it like, really want to have that pool for our residents, and we don't try to cooperate, they can pull all that back and we can have nothing for them. So we're very conscious about that as well.
I make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Lyle Park District for the exchange of resident rates for the respective districts' fitness memberships and season pool passes.
Second the motion.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald. Aye. Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Mr. Katsula.
Aye.
Mr. Lunt.
No.
Moving on to board business. Thank you to the Grow Foundation for their donation of petting zoo animals for the Country Park event. Did somebody send them a letter? Thank you, letter.
I did.
Okay.
And I'll also be attending their meeting in March.
So pre-pandemic, we had a liaison to the Grove Foundation and that kind of dropped off. Staff changes and pandemic, so Eric is gonna be our new liaison to the Grove Foundation.
I wanted to
Congratulate staff and specifically the marketing department for first place in the case at the
Illinois
only.
Park and Recreation.
And then it was nice to read about the presentations by staff, shared their professional
expertise
at the conference during some sessions. Katie Wallace, Brian Mayron.
Um,
And then Claire Kent.
and then Carter Patter. Thank you all.
Other than Carter, we had to encourage our staff. They've done that internally. We're like, you need to take that to conferences. You guys are really good at that. They were a little nervous, but I think they're really happy that we encouraged them to do that and they stepped out and.
Any commissioner comments?
Not the Grove at the Grove thing, that was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It sounds like a fun thing to do and then.
it is. Yeah,
Place.
they've been doing that. 18 years, because I was on the board back when that started. And the first few were in Chicago. And then now they've moved to different communities. So like I said, I think we're the first not Chicago community to have it twice. They approached us, correct, this second time?
Mhm.
So, yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
Does that mean you have to organize the whole thing or
They have a committee, but we have staff that sits on that committee as the host community. We did the logo, I believe.
So does it have a different name, every community it lands in?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a competitive track and a not so competitive track. Because the competitive track, I mean, they run like. No, it's a fun event. And it's nice because then we can show off our talent.
Any other comments? No?
So as I had mentioned in my text message this morning, we'll entertain in general any questions you might have for the staff, but we're gonna not do individual reports so that we can turn that over to our master planning practice. Bobby, you're up.
All right.
Bobby, you. Speak.
Should be muted. All right, well, thank you everyone for. I am hearing the echo.
Yeah, this volume.
Right, there we go. Now I think I'm good. All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's good to see all the commissioners again and all the staff as well. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to give you an update on all the work that's been done so far on our comprehensive master plan update process. Specifically tonight, we'll be sharing highlights from phase 1 of the project itself. And you'll get to hear a bit about some of the work we've done, have an opportunity to reflect a bit on your vision for this plan, which will be really helpful as then we move on to those second steps. So our plan for today is to go through the following topics. First of all, as a reminder, I'll start with introductions. My name is Bobby Nance. I'm president of Recreation Results and have been working with the staff and especially Paul on our first phase of this project. I'm also joined tonight by Sarah June, who has been helping as well with some of the stakeholder engagement processes. I'll be helping a bit with our activity that'll take place a little later on. As we work through the agenda, we'll be covering, like I said, the highlights of some of our findings and the information and input that's been collected so far. I'm going to cover first just some updates on some of the demographic information that has shifted in your community since your last plan took place. I'll also give you some information on the recreation program assessment that took place as part of this process. So learning a little bit more about the programs being offered and the participation that's taking place in them. Then I'm going to pause and give Paul a chance to share some information about the parks and facilities portion that was actually from the last plan that took place. Most of it is still valid for this plan. And so he'll give an overview though, just so that you have an opportunity for a refresher. Then we'll come back together and I'll share information from the community engagement portion of the first phase of the process before moving on to that visioning activity and sharing those next steps. So just a reminder where we're at, although this is a presentation of kind of phase 1, we're actually at this point really already moved into phase 2, where we're starting to reflect on what's really important to the park district, reviewing the information that's been collected and starting to develop and identify that vision for the plan and some of those strategic priorities that will then help shape the rest of the goals and tactics that we want to create that'll make up the actual action portion of the plan. So to kick things off, as I mentioned, I will give you some updates about some of the demographic findings for your district boundaries. So since COVID, population is projected to be on a very slight decline in the community. Overall, that we're finding that that's really coming from household sizes shrinking just a bit. And we see that that is happening partially from a lot of members of the community really aging in place. When we look at resident population, we do see that it's been steadily increasing, not dramatically, definitely seeing that rise in the age of the residents. And one of the things that I think is really important to point out is that it's really that 65 plus age group that is expected to see the increase in population. Other age groups are all decreasing in your community of what's been projected over the next 5 years. And with that, as we think or look towards the future when it comes to this plan, by 2028, that 60 plus age group is expected to make up nearly 1/3 of your total population. We did take a look too at diversity in the community, and specifically what's on the screen right now is a reflection of what's known as the diversity index. It's really a measure if we pick 2 random people from your community, how likely would it be that they actually would come from different racial demographic backgrounds. And I think the kind of what is being shown here is that there is a slight increase in diversity in your community, but it really kind of echoes the same patterns that we're seeing in DuPage County overall, as well as in the state of Illinois. If we dig a little deeper into those race and ethnicity categories, essentially every category listed on the screen is expected to show at least a small growth between 2020 and 2028, except for your white residents, which percentage wise then are going to be showing a decrease. One thing that has remained pretty steady is the household income levels in your community. They're still hovering right around 5% of people in your community living under the poverty line. And you can see as well that almost 90%, so right around 80% are living at 2 times above the poverty line. That is one of the statistics that we looked at that is kind of staying the same, has sort of held true since COVID. All right, next, I just wanted to give some highlights of regarding the recreation program assessment that took place. So the information that I'm going to be showcasing here comes from a couple of different sources. First, we did a download and a look at the data related to your recreation programs from your RecTrack software. So that includes not only what was offered in terms of programming, but also how many people participated and also who those people were. Of course, one thing that's always important to acknowledge whenever we're doing anything with registration software is recognizing that not all programs 100% across the board take registrations. And of course, it's not going to include those activities that may be recreation based, but aren't necessarily programs. So this isn't reflecting memberships, for example. It's also not reflecting drop-in type of events where someone may have attended like a concert in a park, but not actually signed up and registered for that event. Now, we also balanced that RecTrack data and that information with input from the staff. And so some of the results from the assessment that the staff took about the programs will also be part of this section. So to start with some of that RecTrack data, in 2023, we definitely saw that your district offers a wide range of programs to the community. If you look at all the different types on the list, it's really great to see, especially that even those top categories aren't heavy in any one area. We see things like camps, general interest, nature, and sports being those program areas where the most were offered within the community. And I always love seeing whenever those are different areas. So you're not necessarily heavy in just one type of program. Unsurprisingly, this leads to a really wide variety of benefits that are being offered to people. So across the board, we're seeing all of the categories that we typically look to being represented. Ultimately, fun and relaxation, education, and educational benefits and social benefits are highest at the top, according to staff. Although some of the ones that are a little bit lower, we do see things like creativity, personal expression, childcare, and cultural programming, cultural benefits being a little lower on the list. We took kind of another look at what was being offered, in this case, really asking the staff what programs, unique types of activities were being offered and who they were really targeted for. The lesson here is that there's a lot of color on the screen. So that means there's a lot of variety for a lot, not only in a lot of different program areas, but for a lot of different age groups, which is good to see. Those darker blue colors that are boxed in orange are sort of the areas where there's the highest amount of programming taking place. So from this, we can infer that youth sports and martial arts programs, adult fitness programs, youth and family nature programs, youth general recreation programs for both youth, early childhood, and seniors, as well as day camps are some of the highest concentration of offerings from the district. We took a lot of dives into different ways, not just what was offered in terms of content, but how they were offered or how it was packaged. It was really good to see that the district offers a really good mix of things in terms of program lengths, times of day, times of year that they're offered. It's always good to see a good balance there. And we also took a look at trends related to key metrics that can tell us a little bit about customer satisfaction with programs, where registration is trending, and even things, did a little digging into things like retention of customers. And I'm happy to share with you that all of these key metrics related to program registration are all pointing in the right direction. So you can see registration has been up, especially since 2020. We're also seeing that the average number of registrations, so how many how many programs or registrations each individual customer is registering for each year, that is trending up, as is the percent of resident households registering for a program. So you have more registrations, but that is coming from people doing more with you and more people doing things with you. So that's always a good sign.
Bobby, is there an industry standard there? We're looking at 3.5 for 2023, right? Which is up, and I love the trend. It means our programming is successful, right? We're penetrating families. Are we still light, or are we about on the median?
I would say, so I don't know that there is an industry trend from groups that I've worked with where I've done this metric. I've seen groups as low as 1.5 up to usually at the highest that I've seen is about 5.5.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I do think too, some of those differences that can come with those numbers, there are park and rec organizations that are a little less facility. I would say they're more facility light. I don't want to make an impression that you're a facility.
Oh, I get it, yeah.
But yeah, so they depend more on programs too. So there's always a little bit of variation there.
It'd be interesting to know what our average registrations is per family, right? Because you could have a mom or a dad or an adult, right? A child adult living at home. But I like the trend.
Yeah, definitely. If I remember correctly, that registrations per household is also a number that we did share with the recreation staff.
Oh, great.
We produced a set of dashboards for them so that they can not only see these things at a high level, but dig in a little bit more to their individual programs. And so I don't remember that number offhand, but it was generally, if my memory serves me correct, was also trending in that direction, same direction.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. So as we dig in a little bit deeper, I always think the story gets a little bit more fun and interesting. So I took a look at your top 10 most popular program categories in terms of registrations and kind of compared them pre-COVID numbers to where we are right now. So where you are in 2023. And 8 out of 10 of your most popular program categories saw an increase in registration, some of them pretty dramatically so. Nature is a great example there, which is up over 400% from where it was pre-COVID. I do want to say even those 2 out of 10 that didn't see an increase, fitness stayed relatively same in terms of program registrations, which is good to see since a lot of park and rec organizations are still struggling to get people back into their normal fitness routines. And then I know gymnastics, for example, which did see a decline, that was a conscious decision by the staff. So I think it's both something to celebrate, but also something to recognize some of these increases and really thinking about what that means in terms of the increased load that might be on staff, even just on marketing, on communication, on the facilities where those programs take place. So with that growth also comes sometimes some growing pains with that too that eventually emerge. Just in terms of how the district works and offers those programs, right now about 68% of the classes that are offered or taught, instructed by district employees. And about a little over 30% are done with the help of independent contractors, outside vendors, or other partner groups. I mentioned that we also looked at sales from a retention standpoint. And so Again, we're seeing some good news with your retention rate slowly creeping up as well in the past year, being at 68%. So these retention rates are based off of households that did something with you in a prior year, and then did they come back and do something with you the next year, or did we eventually recover them? So this is really looking at that household level, not necessarily individual customer level. But you can see that the majority of the households that are signing up for you, for programs with you, are returning households, which is great. That loyalty leads is a good indicator of great services provided by the programs, a good experience. But there's also other benefits that come with returning households. One of which is we took a look at the sales essentially, or the registrations for each of these different categories. So what's your new households that had never done anything with you before, how much they're doing with you versus recovered households versus returning households. And you can see that returning households register for twice as many programs as other households do. So that keeping those retention levels up and growing and emphasizing that is not only good from a service perspective, but also from revenue or participation perspective as well.
Can we cut the data to see what a returning, excuse me, let me rephrase my question. I need to swallow. My question is around the retention rate. So 68% are returning. Do we know, can we cut the data to determine if they're returning to a same program family or to yet a new program family, right? So it's like almost like a net new product cross sale. Just curious if we have a window into that.
By program family, do you mean like a program category or a type of program? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Yes, we can do that. So yes.
I was just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's one of the nice things about the way that we approach the analysis of the data. Is giving us an opportunity not only to get some insights in the beginning, but to be able to go back and ask questions about it. So that's definitely one we can revisit.
I'm sorry if I missed this when you were talking. Is a recovered household one that like they were doing programs and they didn't, and then they came back?
Yep.
And a returning is they were here last year.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. When we looked at who, getting a little bit more into some of the demographics of who is signing up for your programs, most program registrations came from youth 14 and younger. So about 3/4 of your unique, when we're talking specifically residents in this case is what's being shown here. About 3/4 of your registrations were coming from youth 14 and younger. And so this is not something that's atypical. This is really common for in Park and Rec organizations. But one thing that's always really helpful is to kind of understand the participation of your residents against the backdrop of who lives in your community. And so when we add that information, some new insights really start to come to light. So the first one that is really exciting, I think, is just to see that essentially about 4/5 of your community in the age range of 5 to 9-year-olds registered for at least one program with the district, which is pretty fantastic. I think one thing it leads to, though, is an understanding that if you want to grow things in that area, it's less about trying to find the new people, because most of them are with you already. And really then the emphasis gets to be figuring out what additional stuff or what additional programs might our customer base that we already have at that age level, what might they want to do with us? Now, there are areas specifically at the 60 to 64-year-old age group where there's a much larger gap, and we're at least through registered programs again. So this isn't including your pickleball players or your concert goers or people who have a fitness membership. But when it comes to programming, of course, at the adult age, we have a much higher gap. And so in that case, the strategy for getting more people in definitely turns to understanding that it's about reaching new customers, not so much about getting the same people to do more things with you. Another thing that's really important to note here is that this is really based off of what happened in 2023 and the demographics that are projected for your community right now. So as this plan moves and is thinking about the future, then in 5 years, in 10 years, we'll be actually talking about this hump. They will be 65 to 69, 70 to 74. So in terms of planning for the future, we have to think about how those age groups will be aging in the community. And then I mentioned that as part of the assessment, staff also gave feedback. So you've seen some of the responses from their results already, but we did do a couple of different types of analysis to understand how well the portfolio itself in terms of programs being offered is performing. One of the things that we looked at were life cycle stages that programs fell under. And ultimately, again, I have good news to share overall for your organization. We see a really good mix of programs that are at that performing stage, which means that they're steady performers. I don't want to say they run themselves, because definitely it still takes staff to run them, but they're at least have a good reputation. Often word of mouth helps get people in the building, or people just sort of know this is what to go to for the organization. There's also a really good mix of new programs coming in, which is always really good to see in those introductory and gaining traction stages, so that we know that as some of those performing programs eventually maybe start towards that end of life stage where they need to be refreshed or potentially eliminated, there's a good mix of new programs that are coming in as well. There are some slight tweaks that we recommend to some of those program stages. So trying to lower the number of programs at the end of life stage just by a little bit, and then hopefully grow the percent of programs that are in that performing stage with that adjustment is a slight recommendation. But overall, it's really close to what we would normally want to see. And in your packet and on the screen now, just to give you a few examples, there are a few examples of the programs that fell under each stage, so you can have kind of an understanding of what fell in what area. Now, I mentioned that staff have the ability to dig in just a little bit more than the higher level view that I'm presenting tonight. Just to give you an example, we did look at the life cycle stages for all the different program categories. And so you can see that there's a little bit more variance there that we'll be able to look at and potentially try and address through recommendations in this plan. For example, the TRIPS and visual and performing arts categories have a little bit higher percent of end of life programs that we would normally like to see. You can also see in certain areas where there's a lot of newer programs trying to get off the ground, like museum and nature programs, with how especially nature is a growing area for you all. It's unsurprising to see such a high percent of those introductory and gaining traction programs.
How do we make a distinction between trips and events and experiences?
Trips for this specifically, trips were we are going to a destination, and events and experiences is generally the category used for any sort of special events that could be open to the public, just as a drop-in basis, or it could be some of those that have registration associated with them, but someone will still consider a special event.
And the trips were providing transportation. Do I have that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we either contract it out or we do it.
Right, okay. That's how we're defining. Got it. Thank you.
Or we've got bigger trips that they're like going farther away.
Yeah.
That's then packaged in.
All right, and then so that is like I said, the highlights from our recreation program assessment. So I'm gonna turn it over to Paul to talk about parks and facilities.
Bobby, I'm gonna give Bobby a short break here. And I will be talking about our parks and facilities. Get this up here. again, as Bobby mentioned at the beginning, I'm gonna be talking about some information that comes from our previous master plan. So she just got done talking about the recreation programming assessment, which that was a piece that we actually didn't have in our previous master plan. So that's all new analysis and data that we're getting from her. Also wanted to, so I'm gonna give a recap of part of what we did our last time was focused really on our parks and facilities. And part of that plan, one of the chapters that came out of that plan was a document that we call the State of the District, which looks at our existing facilities, looks at what we have and how we compare with industry as well as local standards. So just a recap of our park system. So we have 49 park sites that we manage currently for a total of just under 600 acres total in the community. And the park district overall makes up 45 or 14 square miles. We do almost match village boundary throughout our history. Typically, whenever the village annexes parcels, we are able to then annex those into the park district at the same time. So we generally follow the same boundaries. And for planning purposes, we generally categorize our parks into three groups. We have mini parks, neighborhood parks, and community parks. So one way to evaluate a park system, again, from the last plan, is look at the distribution of our parks or our access to the parks within our system. So we're breaking down into the three categories of parks, and we were able to create these maps that show us where the parks are and how many people have access typically to those parks. Starting with the mini parks, these are our very small parks with maybe just have a playground. And as we look at these maps, we like to have, we say that mini parks, the service area of a mini park is a quarter mile. That's about a 5-minute walk. So we drew these bubbles you can see on here. The pink bubbles are the quarter mile service area around the parks. When we look at that, we were able to determine that approximately 37% of our residents live within a 5-minute walk of one of our mini parks. You'll notice, for example, that there's a little bubble around, say, McCollum Park down here at the south end, even though that's not a mini park. But if you live within a quarter mile of McCollum Park, that playground is your mini park. You will go to that playground. So we do consider any of our parks that do have a playground meet that mini park. We just show the service area around it is no more than a quarter mile, that 5-minute. Another thing to keep in mind is that we also have elementary schools scattered throughout the community with their own playgrounds that people will often visit. So you can see on this map, the yellow shaded bubbles represent that the service areas around those schools that have a playground. So we have 37% of our residents within a quarter mile. When you add in the schools and similar resources, that goes up to 48%. Moving on to neighborhood parks. So these are slightly larger parks that typically not only have a playground, but also some additional features, whether it be, so in addition to a playground, they may have also a tennis court or a basketball court or some open space. Maybe it's a playground plus there's additional open space that can be used for informal activities, picnicking and pickup sports and things like that. So if you think about, say, Hummer Park, Hooper's Hollow Park, and Constitution Park is a good example of a neighborhood park that has a playground, but especially since we're going to be doing the improvements at Constitution, like adding a shelter, that kind of solidifies its status as a neighborhood park. Now, these, we look at a service area of about a half mile, about a 10-minute walk for a neighborhood park. And these are very important, obviously, because you can reach a lot more of the community with that half-mile service area. So you can see a lot more coverage when we start looking at our neighborhood parks. 55% of our residents live within a half mile of a neighborhood park, which is nice. And then a lot of the schools also, they fall into this category because most of the schools, in addition to a playground, there's also some open space there where, it's more than just a playground. There's space, sometimes basketball courts on the blacktop there outside the school. and other amenities like that. So it really kind of falls into that neighborhood category. So here, even better, when you factor in those neighborhood parks, 74% of our residents are within that half mile. In this case, just wanted to point out that those bubbles that we see, the pink and the yellow bubbles of the service area, those get cut off when they reach a major barrier, like a major road like Ogden Avenue, or the railroad tracks, for example. So they do have limits. Obviously, if you've got to park near some of these, these boundaries, that kind of cuts off the ability to reach residents, because we don't expect our residents to cross the railroad tracks to reach Gilbert Park or something like that. So just wanted to point that out. And then finally, community parks, which are much larger parks. Essentially, these are the ones where you start to see our ball fields, our baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, more athletic fields, athletic complexes in these parks. And we use a 1 mile service area for that, because people will typically be driving to a community park. If you have baseball practice at McCollum Park, but you live, kind of further north, you're going to drive to McCollum for that. These service areas, the bubbles do overlap the major barriers, because we assume people will drive to these parks. So here we can see 83% of our residents live within 1 mile of a community park. And then when you put it all together, you can see a lot of pink on the screen there, obviously, but that just shows us that we have very good coverage of our residential areas of Downers Grove. There's a few small pockets of the community that are outside of that, but those are kind of small, limited. You can see at the very south end, number 19 is south of 75th. But there may be, we weren't looking at say parks and resources outside of our park district. It could be that there are schools or other parks, other park district parks that might be close enough to those residents that they may have some service. Up on the left there on the east side of the community, number 9 is mostly industrial area. And then there's a few small pockets there. You see 12, 13, and 14 that don't have good coverage. Although 12 there on the east there, that I believe is almost entirely the Bristol Club apartment complex. Makes up almost that entire piece there, which they often have some amenities that they offer. I know that one actually has a pool, an outdoor pool. I think tennis courts and a volleyball. May not have a playground, which is something to consider, but they do offer some resources. So again, this is one way to evaluate the system, our park system. Another common way to evaluate the park system is to compare ours with industry standards, and also and other similar agencies. And we call this a level of service analysis. So in this case, as part of our plan that we completed in 2018, we looked at industry benchmarks are typically for us established by the National Park and Recreation Association, but we also looked at several nearby and similar sized agencies. So we developed what we called a local benchmark that looked at 9 other agencies that we show listed here, comparing ourselves to those, in addition to just the national standards. So one typical metric that we use to evaluate a park system is the number of acres per 1,000 residents, number of acres provided accessible per 1,000 residents. So in this case, it's really the kind of the top of this chart that you see on the right there. The national standard is typically 10 acres per 1,000. When we looked at our local benchmarks, averaging those 9 other communities that we examined as our local benchmarks, those came to 11.4 acres per 1,000, and we're currently at 12 acres per 1,000. So we're in good shape there. I will mention though that includes that 595 acres that we have includes our natural areas, and we're actually very fortunate, in our community that we have our system, that we have Lyman Woods and Belmont Prairie as part of our system that we can offer to our residents, and a lot of communities may not have those specifically as a park district offering. If we were to subtract out those two, say Lyman Woods and Belmont, we would actually be at 8.5 acres per thousand. So, there are different ways to look at this. You take those out of the equation and we're actually, a little below the national benchmark. But then the other side of that is that this number doesn't include those school sites. This is just looking at park district properties that we manage. We also have schools that contribute as well. Another reason to look at that distribution of parks, the map, in addition to just taking the straight acreage number. And then again, we're looking at, in addition to the acreage, also looking at individual amenities, comparing ourselves to standards there. I think the interesting thing to look at is on the far right there, that list of amenities on the far right there, looking, obviously the little red down arrow is where we're a deficiency compared to, say, all these local benchmarks. The second from the bottom one is splash pad, and this table's from the previous master plan before we had our splash pad. And that was a major recommendation that came out of that plan. So that I can update that to a 1, which will change that little red arrow to a green equal sign. So, we really do match pretty closely with our local benchmarks in terms of some of these specific amenities. And then lastly, just also looking at indoor facility space, it's a little more difficult to evaluate. It can vary greatly in terms of use and function. As part of the plan, we did kind of look at national standard is really 1.5 square feet per person. Our local benchmarks appear to be around 2, and we are currently at 2.35. And didn't have any kind of local benchmarks that we could establish for the kind of individual pieces. But so this is the information again that we feel like is still is still relevant in terms of the current plan. This information doesn't change very quickly, so it's we feel like able to use a lot of this data that we had from our previous plan as part of the our master plan update. So with that, if there's no questions, I'm going to let Bobby jump back in and talk a little bit about our community input we were able to do over the last few months. Let me stop sharing.
So in this first phase, which really started towards the end of October and ran through January of 2024, we did our best to reach out to the community in a variety of different ways. So some of the participation that we had is shown on the screen right now, which included a pop-up event at the library, which was really fun to do with Dawn, and then held a series of focus groups, have had several staff workshops, and also released an online survey and made that available to the public, of which received a really high number of responses. So reaching over 1,000 responses. So got a lot of good information for that. In your packets, there are summaries of some of the key themes from some of those workshops, the focus groups, those kinds of things. Just in the interest of time tonight, I don't want to read them through to you, but they are definitely there for you to kind of have a little bit more understanding of what shared and some of the highlights from those different areas. One thing we did want to share though was just the groups that participated in those focus groups. They were really centered around the community organizations and partner organizations that the district works with. So both in your handouts and on the screen now, you can have an understanding of who participated in those as you read through the comments that were shared by those groups. Tonight, I really want to focus on sharing some of the results as it relates to the results of the community survey. Overall, the first question we asked was just in general, how would you rate your overall opinion of the park district? And you can see that essentially 90% of those responding had a positive feeling or a positive opinion about the district, including nearly 60% that rated it as very positive. We did ask some follow-up questions as it relates to what people really liked most or what they felt like the district did well. And those things were really speaking to the high quality and variety of programs, facilities, and parks. Cleanliness of the parks and facilities was also mentioned in that as well. When we asked kind of the flip side of that question, so what do they not do as well, or what don't you like about the district? Some of those same things got brought up again, but in a more specific sense. So there were comments about lack of programming or wanting more programming for adults specifically, but also youth and family, which we know the district already does a lot for, but there's still a call for that. There were also some calls for additional amenities, especially related to sports fields. So additional space for sports fields, but also things that would make those fields more available, like lighting, turf fields, that type of thing. And then also some additional calls for some types of facilities and amenities that the district does not have at the moment, with pools being the first thing mentioned in those comments, but also some others like a skate park also was mentioned several times. Yeah.
So can we see I'd love to read the neutral and somewhat negative responses.
Yeah, sure. Any of those can be done that way.
I'd love to read them.
So for any of those groups, we would, they would be asked both those questions of what did you like and what did you not? So we can definitely split out those results. All right. Another question that we asked was just how frequently either you or a member of your household has used any of the following types of facilities in the past 12 months. And so you can see that those responding to the survey did make high use of both large neighborhood parks and small neighborhood or mini parks, especially with the larger community parks. They essentially 93% said they at least visited one once. You can see numbers again with the recreation center being the highest, that noted as being the highest visited facility, at least in terms of percent of people who had visited it at least one time. For those that had said that they had visited part of the facility, so those saying, yeah, we had at least done a visit, we asked them how they would rate the district in the following areas. And again, overall responses are very positive and at least 90% or higher in all of those categories, rating their experience as excellent or good in terms of overall experience, cleanliness, maintenance, and upkeep, and also ease of access. We did ask a question that we said, you know, if this was addressed and gave people a series of different options, would any of these things result in their either themselves or their household spending more time in park district parks? And so you can see overall which responses or which options people said would result in them spending more time, but also then we asked them of the ones they selected, which one would have the biggest impact. And so if we look at those having the biggest impact, things like additional walking trails and paths, and also replacing outdated park amenities and equipment were the two highest things that people would like to see addressed. We then asked a couple of questions about any participation when it came to programs, and we essentially gave them an option to say, yes, we have, and was it with the park district or someone else or both? And then if they had not participated in any of these types of programs, they could express whether they were interested in those types of programs or if they had no interest at all. And so you can see both in terms of participation based on for those who responded to this survey, that the categories of family events and large special events, as well as youth sports, scored the highest overall in terms of, yes, we are participating in those types of programs within the community. But then I think it is interesting to look at the highest percent or the highest responses of, no, I'm not currently participating in those programs, not only at the district, but not somewhere else either. But I would have an interest in that. And so we see adult fitness and wellness, adult general recreation, local history programs or history related programs, nature still being high on that list, and then adult tours and trips, as well as adult sports leagues and programs. And of course, do still see a high need related to swim lessons as well. Then we asked for those that said that they had participated in a Downers Grove Park District program or event. We asked them to, again, rate the program in the following areas that are listed on the screen. Again, overall, the responses still fell heavily into that excellent and good, those good, excellent and good ratings. Although we do see that things like ease of registration and participation is a little bit higher on the average score, as is program time and days, also presenting a little bit more of a challenge in that area. Just like we asked for what might get you or your household to participate in or visit parks more often or spend more time in parks, we asked that same question related to recreation programs and events. And so again, you can see that the sort of top responses, both in terms of total responses, but also sort of what they chose as their highest concern that they'd like to see the district address, were new and expanded program offerings, more programs and events for a specific age group, more convenient program times and days, and then lower program pricing. Also, concern-wise, more immediate and advanced classes also appeared as a higher top concern for those that had selected it. And then finally, we asked the question, just kind of took a step back and asked the community and those responding to the survey about their thoughts about some broader issues or challenges that they might like to see be at least a theme or considered as part of the development of this plan. And so they were allowed to, of the choices given, select one they considered most important and then also a second most important choice. And so you can see that the answers that rated the highest were improving the physical health and fitness of residents, improving the sustainability of parks, facilities, and operations, and to a slightly lesser extent, improving the mental health and wellness of residents. So before we move on to the next item on the agenda, were there any questions about the survey or any of the highlights on it tonight? No, I've given you a little bit to read too. Thanks. Well, with that, as I had mentioned, whenever I shared the agenda in the beginning, I think this is a really good opportunity to hear from you all about what your vision for the plan is. And so I created just a little exercise. We're gonna hand out some questions for you to jot your thoughts down on. But what I want you to do is just kind of picture that it's not 2024 anymore. Let's say it's 2034. Maybe you're still on the board. Maybe you're not, but you are still a happy resident of Downers Grove, we hope. But I want you to imagine that 10 years have passed and the outcome of this plan that we're putting together was even better than you'd hoped it would be. So went really well. We're presenting you with have a lot of good and happy results to share. And let's say that the local newspaper is writing a story about your results. So what I want you to think about first is, what do you kind of envision what that headline might be? So what headline for a story might reflect what you think happens whenever I said it's 10 years later and things went really well with this plan? It was really successful for your organization. So I'm gonna ask you to kind of picture that headline in your head first and write that in the space on the top of the worksheet that you were just handed. Then on the lower left-hand side, I'd like to ask you to think of 3 specific accomplishments or milestones that might be mentioned in that article that really illustrate what led to that success. So we can point back to this moment, that thing that happened. And then finally, if you're able, on the lower right-hand side, if you could picture maybe what might be a chart or a data point, or even just a photo that author of that article might include in the sidebar of that article, just to kind of highlight some of the results that took place or to illustrate that to the public. Again, kind of getting your vision for it. So you can fill that out on your worksheet. I'll give you just a few minutes to do that and then tell you what I'm going to start.
Notes for us to draft, because we're writing in permanent marker.
You on the
We need
worksheet,
those later.
and so we'll use the Post-it notes as part of step 2. You can decide if you want to write with the Sharpie or not on the worksheet. Either way.
Brad, do you want my pen?
I'll try to think thoroughly before I write something.
Bobby, I'd like to know if the staff is also participating in this exercise.
We already have. Okay.
Not tonight.
So all the staff has, and then the planning staff, which is. So we've already done.
Hello.
Maybe it has come out.
Okay.
Corner. Broad line is with, so. It's basically more trails, more nature. For people who took the survey. So that includes our answer, people that, so we're gonna know that. Yeah. Yeah, not specifically.
Right, I'm okay.
Like, if you could, that's where that.
I'll make it later.
Yeah. Music we got.
No, I actually debated. I took my speaker out of my bag and I was like. I do feel like I get called out now when I don't bring these like good places. I feel like finally I didn't make a business.
You get the Jeopardy music? So good here.
Or should I just say? How it is, how that's written right now.
No, sorry, Whitlock.
My mistake.
He could.
Trade in. Oh.
So if you are still writing, please continue. If you feel like you have your sheet filled out, now I'll explain the mystery post-it notes. So the idea behind those is that I'd like you to summarize what your three kind of, in step two, those three specific accomplishments or milestones are. So summarize those, and we gave you the Sharpie just because they'll be a little bit easier to read from afar. But if you can, one accomplishment or milestone per post-it note, so you should be giving us up to 3. But if you can write those one post-it note each and just hang on to them for a second, we'll then give everyone an opportunity to kind of share what their headline was and what their 3 post-its say, what sort of those accomplishments they're hoping to see are, and we'll collect those from you at that time. So again, if that didn't make sense. So you've got your 3 accomplishments that you wrote in that lower left-hand corner. Go ahead and put 1 each on a post-it note. Do you have a question? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So of these. um, One. Yeah, and feel free if you want to put it into, summarize it. Yeah, you're welcome to. Yeah. Of course.
Only three.
Only three. So if you had 4 or 5, this is a chance to prioritize. I will say, it will be really helpful, to either, if you don't mind, if we take those sheets with us, or at least snap a photo of them though, so we can capture your whole language of everything you wrote. That'd be really helpful for us too, so don't feel like you'll miss out on anything.
Right here.
We will in a second. I'm gonna have you share out. I think we're almost done. Right. Right. Right, right. We'll play some board games.
No surprise.
I know, 23 points in the first quarter.
She withheld last game. It was sad to watch. Last 550, she barely touched the ball.
But that cost them the victory of the game.
Did.
How'd you do tonight? Did she?
They broke 23 points in the first quarter.
All right, so as we wrap things up, please, if you're still writing your final thoughts, continue to do that. The way we're gonna collect the information is I would love for you to share with the group what your headline was. And then tell us what your three or those three milestones that felt like were a good reflection of what it meant to really achieve that vision or achieve that headline. Now, I do not trust myself to step over boards multiple times. So Sarah will come around behind you as you share out and pick up your Post-it notes and bring them to me so I can put them on the board. One thing as you share out, of course, it's not a problem for us to have a bunch of unique ideas here. But also I think it's a good opportunity to hear if you anyone else's Post-it notes align with yours or with others. One thing that's really helpful at this stage is just to see, is there anything that would work together or kind of go together or feels like a common theme that's starting to emerge from any of your ideas is something that we're looking for here as well. So with that, is there anyone that would be interested in kicking us off and sharing their headline?
Yeah, I can go first. I'll get us going, guys. I'm an icebreaker person. So I've got two, because I couldn't settle on one. Greatness of Gelwick's in the Grove. The path to Gelwick's greatness in the Grove, one of the two. I personally believe that Gelwick's Park is our single greatest opportunity in Downers Grove over the next 5 to 10 years, right? Thinking about your 10-year projection. So that would be my head.
Okay, great. And then what were the accomplishments or milestones that fell under that?
So first and foremost was sustainable financing, right? So making an investment decision in Gelwick's Park that is centered around environmental, social, and government factors when we're looking at either a public-private option or any capital investment that we would make around that activity or project. So sustainable financing would be my first one. My next one would be balancing community interests, because if we think about Gelwick's Park, it's kind of like a yin and a yang, based upon what we've have been discussing not only as a board but certainly as a staff and with the community. We've got one of the oldest prairies in DuPage County to the east. And then we have what we would consider to be developable land to the west. I think balancing community interests, being able to, leverage, the environment, the nature, creating additional nature paths around the prairie. You mentioned aging in place. I see a lot of programming opportunity in that prairie without causing a detrimental harm, to the prairie itself. And then, the yin or yang, the west side would be developed for additional recreation opportunities, sports, both indoor and outdoor facility, leveraging athletic turf fields, etc. So that'd be my second. And my third is the third milestone would be just the economic value creation as a result of sustainable financing, balancing community interests, and further reducing the taxpayer burden.
Thank you. I'll let Sarah pick those up from you. All right. Anyone want to go next?
I will, I actually focused quite a bit on the exact same yin and yang.
Okay, perfect.
My headline is many iterations, but Downers Grove leads the way, getting its residents to get out and fight. So I'm like, fun, but just getting people outdoors. And on that, the yin and yang of creating an eco-friendly sports facility in Gelwick's Park. So focusing on the nature there, not losing the value of the nature there, but also bringing more opportunities into the community. So that was my number one. Eco was my word. And so creation of a green, maybe even entirely green constructed, interpretive outdoor education center for kids. That just really, because our world is on fire. And so our kids are going to have to look to them to help us solve all the created. So something for youth, And then also leading the way in focusing on, eco-friendly operations. Gas powered or electric powered, electric stations, electric powered fleet, et cetera. So green was my word.
All right. Thanks. All right, Sarah, I'll pick those up from you. Would you like to go next?
Yes. I should have Dawn helping with my headline.
I feel like I've heard alliteration, I have heard rhyming, it's been right in with it.
Okay. Came up with the headline would be futuristic vision and planning credited with programs and park facilities that makes Downers the most desirable place to live. When it's probably not as much detail as what the accomplishments might be, but first I had utilized the use of the 2024 master plan resident survey results and planning programs. I had addressed deficiencies in program offerings and park facilities. And then for 3, I had continuing efforts to adapt to community needs and interests. It's like I'm.
Yes, okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, what's going on the line here? Thankful that Bob made my headline look short.
Mine was like 100 words.
Yeah.
They just trashed it.
Need a broad sheet for this anyway. PD 2024 master plan spawned record breaking park visits and program for registrants. And the first part of that is just recruiting talented staff, right? So many of our programs are only as good as the staff is that's working on them. So, finding the key people in the key places that are going to draw people to join and do more things. And then my second two, I'm realizing kind of do overlap. And I regret that now. But I'm a big trail guy, place to walk, place to ride a bike, place to run. And it's something that I hope that we incorporate into Gallup. Like, I'm thinking about because we have the room there, but it's a nice thing for you to do. And then my third one was just more free recreation options. I love the pickleball courts things. I love trails that if we ever were to get paddle tennis, those courts, I think they got over there in Hinsdale, just more things that people don't need to sign up for, people don't need to register for, just things that get people up off the couch and outside and visiting our facilities.
Thanks. All right, and our last headline.
Headline, keeping open spaces open, plan increased open land use. One of the 3 points that I want to make was more trails, walking and running paths. Preserving the environment by expanding of linemen, planting more native trees and plants in our area, and adding of a dog park to bring communities together. You copied it.
So both the headlines, the accomplishments or milestones that you mentioned, and then also the data points or photos, kind of like what you're picturing in your head that the group will accomplish is really going to play a big role in I think developing and finalizing the strategic themes, and then likely some of them into goals for this plan as well. Is there anything that you see just from what you heard from each other that sounds like there's a few places where a couple of you had a few thoughts in common based off of what was shared? There are a lot of different ideas on here for sure, but I don't know if there was anything that you all heard where it sounded like, or anything else that you might want to add just in terms of potential themes or priorities in this plan.
I heard proceeding wisely with Gelwick's part. Proceeding with it is also proceeding with a lot of thought.
Okay.
Maybe in terms of, pictures, right? Because images, pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, Sandra and I both, identified eco-friendly options, environmental sustainability. And so should we consider and evaluate a facility there, having one that's platinum LEED certified, is fully operated by solar, has little to no carbon footprint, I think would be ideal. Is kind of what was coming to my mind. Like I just kept on seeing like green roofs.
That's what I said, a grass roof.
Yeah, and like and solar panels, and maybe not the entire thing, because it's, it's more mowing. But it's true.
You know someone with goats?
So, that image certainly came to my mind.
Mhm.
Large scale tournaments came to my mind, right? Because, I was thinking pictures of indoor and outdoor sports and recreation. So that was some of my additional imagery. Absolutely bikes and people walking on paths. Educational programming, were some other images I was thinking at the Prairie.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts or themes that you saw start to emerge or want to add on to what's on the board right now?
It seems like open space has been a reoccurring theme among all the commissioners.
Mhm.
And it's important, I think.
I think what my fellow commissioner is saying is we'd like the Dixie Chicks, wide open spaces to be playing at all times.
I would say blaring.
Okay. Well, you definitely saw, I think, improve and expand a little bit with trails as well, kind of fitting into that too. And then even just a specific option about a new type of facility.
Even the trail, the access that's been added to Hooper's Hollow has made a huge difference. Like I walk in that park all the time and just now that it's got a couple more feed-ins to it, it's increased the use so much. People make that circle, so.
All right.
We did sign north side, creating.
I just used that the other day. I didn't even know that was new. I used to walk that on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, just getting to it from different access points is, I think, change things.
Well, I think you all heard that the staff, or at least the leadership team, many of the people in this room participated in the very similar exercise. And so just some of the themes that came out of them, these are my words paraphrasing all of their Post-it notes and groupings as well, was just desire for modern facilities and really looking at some of those opportunities for either improved or expanded opportunities for both public programs and public use as well. And then a desire to offer quality and fresh kind of cutting edge programming and events that engage a wider range of the community. And then some discussions that all kind of, I think, came together to talk about effectively utilizing resources and partners to meet community needs now and being forward thinking, especially with trends. And then also a desire to continually evaluate and assess opportunities to make sure that the district's meeting its own operational, but also community needs and trends. So some of those that came out of that as well from their perspective. So, great. Well, with that, like I said, if you would be willing to share the writing that you just did, or if we could snap a picture of it, that would be really helpful so that we can make sure and take all those thoughts back as we start to I think group some of those strategic themes together and shift to work on the goals. That is really where we're going to be at in that next step, is to take all of your thoughts and start to pull them together into some strategic priorities. And then ultimately be able to start setting some performance metrics and goals for that would fall under each of those strategic priorities for this plan.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
I know this is an overall master plan. I don't know if it fits in or not. It's a question. What about a new administration building? Would that be incorporated in the master plan as well?
yes, that would likely be.
Because we had it on the agenda tonight, we talked about it before, that administration building's starting to get long in the tooth. Not really sustainable. It'd be nice to at least get that on the radar.
Okay.
I don't know if the commissioners agree or, I mean, I didn't even, if it's part of the strategic plan, then I think we should look at that. About land acquisitions maybe, but that building's not efficient whatsoever.
I've added it to the list.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. If you have any other thoughts, of course, you're welcome to share them with Bill as well. And as we start to pull some of this together, figure out where some of the themes are to incorporate a lot of what you've shared and start to wordsmith some of those things, there's obviously still an opportunity to ask more questions about this discussion tonight, or if after you read through a little bit more closely, if you dive into some of those comments that are shared, or have any more questions about any of the data that we shared tonight, please feel free and let me know.
Is there a place, like, is that in the comments where people said specifics on like they do or they don't want, Delbert's Park developed? Is there a place where people made those kind of comments?
It wasn't asked specifically about any specific park or anything. There was an opportunity, I think, when that they could provide additional comments a bit when asking about what would get them to spend more time in parks. So some of those specific, some comments about really specific parks and facilities were included there. Honestly, a lot of
Stuff.
yeah. There was also opportunity at the very end for, do you have anything else you'd like to share that you haven't already? But even the first sort of two questions, what do you like most? What do you dislike? Or what doesn't the organization do well? That included a lot of specific comments too, so.
And we can get that to the board.
Yeah, and we can definitely share those.
No, it's very interesting.
Just to
to
get
look
that
at.
big.
Yeah,
It is interesting. I will say it is, also, we had 1,000 answers, so it's a lot it is a lot to read through. So we did do our best initially to kind of categorize and show you those larger themes that came through it, which will be in your packet right now, but absolutely can provide the detailed comments. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time and attention tonight. Yeah.
When do we move on to phase 3?
Phase 3 will generally, we don't have the dates set yet for that. But essentially 3 and 4 are likely taking place in March, April-ish, with the goal of really putting together and kind of working on the creation of the plan in likely May. With hoping to kind of have that done. Right now, we're sort of aiming for having the final draft of the plan towards late May, early June. So some light summer reading.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when's the board's next input? Is that through a workshop session? Is that through a formal meeting?
It would be an opportunity. Right now, we definitely had it planned in phase 5, but we can definitely bring it back if it's helpful in between that, just to get confirmation on the strategic themes and goals.
Well, when we get to 4 and we start to get a framework and staff, we don't necessarily have to have you come out another time. So if we can get it to have discussion, make sure we're, headed in the right direction, that we can make some change.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Bobby.
Moving on. Other visitors?
Online visitors.
We need executive session.
We do not.
So if that I'll announce the next meeting of the Downsville Park District Board meeting will be held March 21st at the Recreation Center multi-purpose. We're gonna meet at 6 with efficiency committee. Yeah.
I don't know that for sure yet.
Okay.
Who all thinks they're gonna be here in person?
No.
You will? Okay. That may work. I just actually talked to Dirk today because residents can't necessarily be here, but they can zoom in, but we have to have 5 of us physically. That's the
21st.
21st.
That would be before our board meeting.
Correct, yes.
Yep, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We need roll call.
We're good.
Yeah, roll call.
No, I don't think.
We're done.